Hey everybody, welcome back. So right off the crack, this video is going to be about a half hour, and this whole image took 2 hours or so to do. So I tried to compress it as much as I could, but the software I'm using only let me go to 30 minutes. So if you want to skip around, that's cool. If not, hopefully we'll have some cool stuff to talk about along the way. So we're in Manga Studio. Just some quick, I'll get into it while we get there. But usually when I'm starting some drawings, I do this, the thumbnail stuff, and I've recommended a lot of you guys do it, and a lot of you do it, and it's got some powerful stuff. Now, essentially, what I was going to do is a few versions of this, and then see what happens, and then pick a cool one. But I actually got very fortunate and lucked out pretty quick. The very first one, actually, I kind of dug, and I was like, you know what, let's go into it. It's just meant to be a sketch. A lot of the client work that I've been doing lately, and even work that I do at work, has not been overly rendered and heavily shadowed so much. And I kind of want to just take a break and just do a drawing for myself and get some kind of cool rendering and stuff like that in there. So for some reason just decided to do Wolverine. Don't really draw much Wolverine, so I thought it'd be kind of cool. So the thumbnail is good to go. All I've done there is transform it, and I'm making it just as big enough to fit into the actual document size. And now the video is going to start going real quick. What you saw in the beginning there was like a really quick just shape and gesture and try to get that energy in there. And then what I did after that is tighten up just to get some of the forms of anatomy in there. Now that I got that, I blew it up to the actual document size, and now you can see exactly what we're doing right now. Now I'm actually putting in some solid confident anatomy in there. There's still some guesswork, like the head. I wasn't quite sure where we were going to go with that. I kind of wanted a 3/4 view on it, but as you can see, as we start to draw it, I thought it started to look kind of cool just in profile. And his mouth changes to a smile at the end and stuff like that. But just breaking in some ideas of where his costume should go, the flow of it, and all that kind of stuff. But right now, just really concerned about nailing down the perspective, I suppose you could say, of the actual anatomy. So you can see the hand that we're doing there, working about the forearm, the bicep we got there, and the shoulder, working into those pecs, and just trying to show some strain on the muscle as well, so you get some cool flexing going on. And there's the smile. I decided to leave his mouth shut, which is, whatever, in the final version. But right there, just gesturing in some claw action. Here again, just working on the hands. Forearm, gigantic, bulging bicep there. Wolverine's kind of known for that kind of stuff. And now I should say too, initially what I wanted to do with this image was, the old trick of just getting rid of the feet in a drawing, because you not necessarily need them, but it plants them, gives them a little bit of action. But I wanted to put them in like a snowy, mountainside. I don't know, with some not some buildings, but some trees and all that good stuff. So his feet were going to be in like packs of snow, and then you'd have like clouds of dust and kicked up snow. Like, you kind of see that I had there, and then I have some speed lines behind him maybe. Or start throwing in some actual snow. But you'll see at the very end of this video, I do have an image, the final image, that you can zoom in and you can just go around and check it out. Also, if you guys want, I'll link it to my DeviantArt account. You can download the 600 DPI black and white image if you wanted to draw it, or color it. By all means, if you want to color it, let me know when it's done, and I'll either put it on my Facebook or put it on my DeviantArt as well. It'd be really cool if you guys want to give that a shot. So here what I did is made a new layer over top of that tight anatomy and just changed my line work to a red. I've already got blue going on. And I do this sometimes where I'll just start drawing in where costume elements will go. And even claw, like in this case, claw ideas. You guys will see, actually, as we get to the claws, I'm still not even sure if I really nailed them down. They're really tricky. And the added pressure, I suppose, of drawing this stuff all recorded adds to that stress a little bit. But the claws gave me one hell of a challenge. You'll see, especially the one on the left. My God, we're gonna redo that quite a bit. So now I grouped all that stuff into its own layer and called it Sketch, I believe. No, yeah, Sketch. Then I made a new layer above it called Line. Yeah, lines. And then now, literally, this will be it. We're just going in there. This is the tight line work here. We'll throw a contour layer over top of it. You'll see that when we get to it. And then we'll make a new folder and just toss in all our inks. And then I also do another folder on top of that for my background work. And then sometimes I'll even put another folder in there for like foreground or special effects, snow or debris or stuff like that. But yeah, like you guys will see towards the end, that snowy background that I intended on doing doesn't get used at all. For some reason, I started going in with like a sewer. I have no idea why. This is always cool when you give Wolverine or any of these hairy guys like that, flowing what's the word I'm looking for here? Basically, they're not shaven, you know what I mean? So it's all like scruff, you know? And what's really cool when you're thinking about doing that is render it in like a shape. So his chin actually looks like a ball a little bit, so you can kind of see the lines rolling around it. And again, just throwing in the anatomy over the neck. Right here is pretty much all the heavy lifting right here. If I can nail this down looking good with some tight line art, everything else will be pretty much candy once we go in there to do the inks and the shadow. And then finally the rendering on Wolverine here. Worrying about those pecs. Now, I find the trick with Wolverine is to keep him short and stocky. And a good way to help show that is not to give him a gigantic chest. If I were to draw the Hulk, and you guys have seen the video that I did post of me inking the Hulk to me is like a gorilla. Gigantic pec, and you can see real quick here the thumb was just pissing me off. I was struggling with that one too. But with a giant pec, it kind of opens it up a little bit. Wolverine, he's a short guy, so if you're standing straight right now or you're watching, just kind of sit with your back straight. If you if you pull your shoulders back, you can feel your chest kind of like, even if you don't have raging pecs, you know, you can feel it kind of like a Superman pose. That chest, it's like a shield, you know, like it feels like a giant board in front of you. Wolverine, though, I find I prefer to draw him. Bring those shoulders way forward a little bit, where you're kind of rounding your back out a little bit. And what it does is it squeezes your pecs in together. Kind of like if you were to do that bodybuilding pose, you know, where you get your fists and you kind of like bring them together like you're giving somebody a bear hug, and you just squeeze the living hell out of your chest. And by doing that, it rounds his back out. It makes him more like a ball in a sense. So what I wanted to do is give him small pecs here, and then you can see the what are those called? The traps, those trap muscles right above, right near the neck. I get big puffy ones out at the top there, and it helps make him look more stocky. And really quickly, what you saw there, I had finished drawing the arm, but it just didn't look right. So all I did was select with the lasso tool and expanded it and made it a little bit bigger. Just so it's popping at us a little bit more. It's not really noticeable. Like if you look at the image, it probably looks like it just flows into it. But yeah. So going in there, adding more hair on his arm. I was actually thinking about this too while I was drawing this part. How come like a lot of guy characters don't have, like, artists don't draw them, myself included, with like hair on their bodies at all? But when you do somebody like Wolverine, because he's a beast kind of guy, you know, like he's savage, it works and people don't even really think twice about it. Just stuff you think about sometimes when you're drawing. Or at least I do anyway. So just working on the bicep there. And another quick trick here is to help show that the abs, don't always draw abs like perfect little blocks next to each other. Stagger them a bit. They look a little better, especially if you just quickly do like a Google image search on like a bodybuilder. Their abs generally don't stack next to each other. It kind of looks cool if they're a little bit staggered. And especially in this case where his upper body's kind of rolling back, if you just draw the top of the ab, not the bottom like you normally would, it helps look like it's pushing it back a little bit extra there. And you can see I'm just drawing the body and the hands and the arms and stuff, and I actually don't draw the claws. I think it's almost, you know, it's literally the last thing I do on him because I know it's going to be, I'm worrying about it the entire time I'm drawing this. It's Wolverine, right? If you screw up his claws, it kills the picture. So I got his belt going in there. I was kind of torn at which costume I was going to do, to be honest with you guys. I'm a huge fan of the X-Men cartoon, where it's the blue and yellow. I really love the way that one looks with those shoulder pads. But the orange and brown, I love the hell out of that. It's simple, it's clean, you know, it tells you what it needs to. And I prefer those colors for Wolverine over the yellow and blue. But you know, I wanted to take a little bit of elements from it, so I went with the yellow and blue. I just didn't like the giant X on his belt, the X-Men thing. You know, it's cool. Everybody knows he's an X-Man. He's in a whole bunch of teams and stuff. But that brown and orange color that he has, he's got that big fat belt on there. It just helps make him look smaller, I guess, where he's got a gigantic belt. So I just wanted to run that. Plus, it's a little extra detail that you can, you know, you get to toss in there. And what's really cool, too, I should note, in Manga Studio, the line tool is awesome. It's kind of like a mix between the pen tool and kind of like drawing with your smoothing turned on. What you're able to do is you're actually able to set the stroke, like the actual width of the line, and you click one area to the other area, and then once it has those 2 points, you just move your mouse anywhere, and it'll bend to that, kind of like a pen without holding the mouse, and you can see what it's going to be before you actually commit the line, which is awesome. Really love that feature. And here we're just adding in some more of his costume elements, just kind of making it round around his body instead of just putting flat ones on there. All in there is one part that I think I failed in this drawing. In hindsight, is on the left-hand side. He's got those like claw kind of prints on his costume, and it's overly detailed in that area, and it just kind of, with color it would probably help, but I'm getting to the point nowadays where it's like if I have to rely on color to help my drawing look better or make sense, I'm failing as an artist. And that's just myself. And the reason for that is this probably will never get colored unless one of you guys wanted to do it or one of you ladies wanted to do it, whatever. But generally, I'm probably not going to color this. This is just for me to just kind of like get my brain to not worry about anything, just kind of have fun. But if I have to resort to color to fix an error that I should be able to do when I do my shadowing and rendering, then I need to pull it back a bit and keep it more simple. Don't worry so much about getting in there and making it as it really should look. And that's actually one thing that I did want to say really quick was when you end up doing shadows and rendering, it's awesome and you should have an idea where it should go. And do your best to have it replicate real life. Now the problem is, or not the problem, but one of the things that we're fortunate enough to have is that we're drawing, right? So you are allowed freedoms, I believe, to go in there and play around with things. So shadow, you can actually give it more of a dramatic look than it was if it was real life. So don't forget that. Know the rules kind of thing and break them. But just don't always feel like it's a cage. Just think of it more of like a playground to play in. If you got the fundamentals down, awesome. From there, then you can kind of play and you can work it a little bit like that. So here we go. You guys can see me like I was using the line tool, I was freehand drawing, now I've got the marker tool with, I had correction turned on. I drew a block around the arm or the hand to put it in perspective so I could put the claws into perspective. And it's really weird. What I clicked into towards the end was it's not the knuckles or the palm, or not the palm, but the backside, I guess, of your hand that you're trying to line up those claws with. It's easier if you, or for me anyway, if I can imagine it lining up with the forearm. So you guys will actually see, I think I used the... what's it called there? The wrist bone that I drew as an anchor point to where the line should be. And here again, nothing's working. So what I end up doing is I just start sketching it in. And I believe right there is where I started to get it. I was like, okay, awesome. And then I cheated the hell out of this where I just copied and pasted the layer. But the forearm worked at such an angle where, like in my opinion, this still works. This doesn't looks like I totally fudged it. It still looks like it's clean. If anything, I think if I could, go back, probably even tilt the perspective a little more towards us. But, it gets the job done. It still shows the claws. They don't look like they're terribly out of place. And then just touching it up there. And then kind of getting rid of those little, areas that they get out of, just to clean it up. There you go. Now, here we go into the nightmare of the drawing is the left hand. God. So I literally redrew over the sketch because the sketch looked good to me, but when I put it in there, it did not look right. So, I'm thinking, okay, if it's coming straight at us, I know a lot of artists, they draw with that hook, which I get because if you kind of not play with your arm, but if you touch your forearm and you kind of move your hand across your forearm up to the backside of your hand, it feels like there's a curve, so that claw kind of comes out, and it feels like it doesn't just go straight, but it tilts a little bit towards your body or towards your other arm a bit. So I can see why a lot of artists like to do that. It gives it a little bit more of a style to it, more like a claw, really. And I think I finally nailed it right there. I was like, okay, that, I'm stressing out trying to get it to look right, and I'm like, this looks good enough. And usually when you say good enough, I don't know. I don't usually like to say good enough. I usually like to try to figure out a problem. And then in this case, it sucks because this is the last part of the drawing. If I was inking, normally I would just go to, let's say I was having trouble inking the face. I would just go to the arm and stuff like that, then give myself some time or my brain to think and process it in the background. Then I could go back in and go, okay, give it another fresh try. But here, I am adjusting it. I am flipping it around because that bottom part is really bugging me. I don't think it should be that drastic. So what I did there is I just copied the bottom two, flipped it vertically, and then just kind of moved it around and cleaned it up. And this is, I believe, what we ended up going up with. It's just looking like this. So this part, I think I failed on the drawing. But you can't beat yourself up all the time, right? If this was for a client or something, just hope you don't have deadlines. Or actually take some time to open up like a 3D modeling program and probably just draw Wolverine's claws or something in there and then just rotate it around. So here I got all my lines and just cleaning up his mask a little bit. And now I just add a new layer and I'm making the contour. And what the contour is it's like a thick line outlining the character. Now the reason I do this is it helps make him pop a little bit more of an illustrated style, but like he'll pop over the background, and that's usually what you want. Not all the time. It depends on your style of art, of course. But for myself, I like to have my focal characters, or especially in this case, if it's just one guy, he's the image. It's not the environment he's in. It's not, render lines around him and stuff. It's him. Now, it might be different if you have a team shot, or maybe if I drew Wolverine in New York. Maybe New York is the focal point of the drawing. But in this case, it's Wolverine. So I'm just getting a fat, thick outline on there. I'm also kind of going in there and combining the lines, breaking that contour line, and putting a little bit more line weights inside, like right there on the forearm. Normally, I would go in there and I would also start doing some line weights, but lately, especially working digital, I don't really do that anymore. I just kind of play with the actual shadow first, and then if I need line weights, I'll throw them on over top. So I'm just organizing my layers around there. I got my BG folder for my background folder. And again, I was just quickly doing lines there, and I was like, I'm not feeling that. So what I did is I just stopped working on the background, like I said, so that I can give myself some time to think about what the background's going to have, and we're just going to get right into the big juicy inks. And that X you can see up there, that's an inker's tool that I found a lot of people use, where it's, you don't always have to ink everything at the same time. Sometimes what I like to do is I'll carve out shapes, like you kind of saw me do around his eye and stuff, and then I'll go back to it and fill it in with a black. That way, I don't know, you get to a point when you learn how to do shadow and stuff like that, where it's like you can see the shadow before you place it, and it's easier just to kind of draw like the outline of where that shadow would be, like all of that. I could kind of see in my mind what the black's going to look like before I fill it in. And then you can put a little X in there so that you can remind yourself, if it gets too crazy, that you're supposed to put some shadows in there. And actually, I should say too, I believe once the background's done and everything, that's when I actually start rendering out Wolverine. The whole reason I wanted to do this was the rendering part, and I'm pretty sure I saved it to the last when I was all burnt out and energy's all spent. And breaking some core shadows here again for the shoulder pads. And again, one of the awesome benefits of working digital, right, is that you can draw in white whenever you want. So I was losing a lot of the body hair, like whenever there's a core shadow or a black shadow in there, but you can just quickly draw in white so the hair can still show. And so you can see right there. So the effect is still there, so you're not losing anything, which is actually pretty powerful. And a lot of the shadows I like to do are like triangular or sharp points. I don't know, I just kind of like that look that it gives. And just rounding out the claws a little bit. Just give them some depth, make them pop a little bit extra. Give a little bit of a shine there. And we're working on the pecs there, obviously. So his pecs look pretty small. Now this part's actually an error here. I fill it with black, and then I had to zoom out and look at it. I was like, too much is getting lost there. Too much information. Like his pec looks like it's bleeding right into the shoulder pad there. So I just wanted to leave it open a little bit more. And here I'm just adding some shadow again to the claws. Just kind of feeling out where the rest of the muscles are going and all that stuff. I wanted to keep his arms pretty devoid of shadow. There's a lot of hair on them, and I don't know how render heavy I was going to go with them. So, I was leaving them pretty open. And, so here we go. This part's pretty fun to draw. You get all the beefy, chunky stuff with all those muscles that are kind of going into your rib cage you get to play around with. So a lot of, again, sharp points that I like to use in there. And rendering out the abs. It's always fun. You can screw it up, though. I've screwed up my fair share of abs, just the way that I put way too much shadow on there. The shadows just didn't make any sense. Nowadays, I just like to think of it as keeping them as chunky and like, I don't want to say nasty, because it's not nasty, but think of it in your mind as like nasty, like nasty shapes. And when you look at those abs, you might not think those are nasty shapes, but it's probably a poor way of me describing the shape. But just blocks and chunks. I don't know. It's kind of fun. We're going to go and draw his little underoos here. A lot of black in there. And actually, I should just start talking about it now because we're about to get to it. Now, when I start inking the leg on the right, what I wanted to do is have an extra cast shadow happening because he doesn't really have any cast shadows on his body. And what a cast shadow is when something is casting a shadow, literally, okay? So what I wanted to do too is that arm that he's kind of got in front of us, that claw. I wanted to have the arm folding down onto the leg and then have the claws actually cast a shadow on the leg. I think it's an awesome effect and it really helps sell it. It plants it again into perspective and gives it some form, some three-dimensional shape, okay? So pretty sure we're about done here. So you're going to see me start drawing the arm. Here we go. So there's the fist right there, and I'm going to grab the lasso tool and just do 3 lines like that. Bang, done. So right, like personally, like that just gives it an extra level of depth just by incorporating another element that was already there. So again, I wasn't doing the rendering just yet. I wanted to have some sort of background. Again, I was still thinking about doing the snow and some kind of wind or pushing stuff around, but I hadn't really played with these settings before, so I was kind of farting around with them, and I was kind of getting some cool effects and some ideas just from using this. And I've told you guys many times, I'm a big believer that if you're starting to get fresh ideas while you're drawing, incorporate it as you can, because sometimes your brain is thinking on a whole nother level than what you're actually doing, and it's kind of, you know, pushing and pulling and wanting to test things and push boundaries and stuff. And, you know, as long as it's not too far out there, definitely give into your brain. I know that sounds a little weird, but just, you know, play around with some ideas. Now, if you're doing this analog, like on, and I don't know why it's called analog, but with a, you know, actual paper and inking tools, it'd probably be a lot more difficult to do this sort of thing because you can't really just make a layer and turn it off, you know. So, I guess that's one thing that digital does give you the benefit of doing is at any moment you could turn something off, like a layer, add a new layer, and add something cool to it. But I forget when I end up doing it, but I think I started adding in some shadows and some shading, and all of a sudden now he's going to be in a sewer. So the lines, I still wanted the motion in there. Like I still don't know what they are if it's in a sewer. It just kind of gives it some more of a visceral feeling. Again, I don't know if it's needed in there. Here I started breaking it up here just to give it some more, you know, chunky stuff. Now, this is where I started to really work on it. I started putting these clouds in, which at first were supposed to be snow, right? But then I started to see steam in my head. And then steam, I was like, well, he's not in a, you know, in a city. Right there, when I started adding this part with the lasso tool, this heavy black, I was like, okay, so it's water. Now he's in like a swamp or something. And then I started adding this big chunky shape right here and turned it into a pipe. And bang, all of a sudden, now he was in a place. So I had to add another pipe so it wasn't just that one. And just to give it some depth, you know. So now he's in the middle ground. That pipe on the far left is in our immediate foreground, and that pipe is in the background. He's over top of it, so it's in the background. So now we have one thing that you should always try to do when you're drawing as best you can is have 3 layers in your drawing, especially if it's an environment sketch. A foreground, middle ground, and background. Doesn't matter what's in them, as long as you have those elements, usually you'll succeed pretty good. And then I just wanted to add even more pipes in the background by playing with the halftones. Another awesome thing that you can do in Photoshop. It looks like solid gray here till we zoom in so you can actually see the lines. And once we zoom in at the very end of the video here and you can see the final art, you'll see those lines looking kind of cool. It helps give it a little bit more raw illustration style. You know, it's not really going to be colored, probably not, so it doesn't really matter. It just helps sell it that it's black and white. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I dug where it was going, kind of liked where things were going, just breaking up some steam. In a second here, I'm about to add another folder, and there we go, and rendering. The cool stuff. The whole point of doing this whole thing. And feathering, rendering, whatever you like to call it. Again, awesome. What you can see right there is being able to draw in white. I'm able to draw in black at any moment, which gives me an extra level of detail that, you know, I don't know how to properly ink with real tools, you know, like an actual quill or a brush. I don't. The inking tools I use when I want to do illustrations or commissions for people, I use a, what's it called? Oh, man. Pentel it's G Pilot. It's like a really fine line. And then for the actual brushwork, I'll use a Pentel pocket brush. I don't know how you'd be able to draw like this kind of stuff with white. I hear a lot of people, they'll use things like what's it called, whiteout. But maybe one day I'll actually sit down and try to teach myself these proper tools because, I do get lost in this kind of stuff. And it's always, you only live once, right? So why not try to learn the most you can? You never know what it would do for your art, right? So if I could learn something from a traditional standpoint that I could bring into whatever I end up doing, that's probably a good thing. And I would highly recommend everybody does that as well. Even if you're just getting into digital work and you don't like it and you end up going back to working with regular paper and pens and pencils and stuff, you'll probably learn something from the digital workflow that, you might want to take over, you might not, but you'll learn a little something. Like even right here where I just knocked all that in and now it's shiny metal, I would have to think of all of that beforehand, and, it's kind of cool not having to worry about that kind of stuff. But again, just rounding out form, trying to give things like a round shape. Shadows are one thing. Shadows will make your art look different, obviously. If you can do it right or do it as best you can, you'll start to notice a different thought process. The exact same thing can be said for rendering, I find. Even if you don't do shadowing, you just do straight rendering, it does a lot for your art. And at first it might look like crap, it might just look like lines, but the more you do it, the more you understand it, and the more you can play and have fun with it. And it'll probably take your drawing to another level. I'm not saying everybody should draw like this. I'm not. I don't always draw like this. A lot of people, they like to draw in like a more animated style where you don't even really do line weights. It's just, here's like, let's say a flat pen and it's just got one thickness and that's how they draw. Awesome. The only recommendation I have is to spend a little time, maybe in a sketchbook or something, and try this stuff out. Worst thing that's going to happen is you might pick up something that you like, and it kind of goes the other opposite way for me as well. Like I'm getting more into the simple stuff too. There's like a lot of passion and energy that I'm able to get out of that because you don't have all these tools to really work with. You have to sell it based on shape and volume and economy of line. I've heard a lot of people talk about where it's like the most you can get out of a single line is paramount, and there's a lot to be said for that. But yep. So sorry, I'm just trying to look at while I talk to you guys how much time we got left. Okay, so it looks like the video is about to wrap up. I just want to say thank you guys so much. I hope you guys had fun watching this really long video, and I apologize for that, but it was the best I could do. And if you just scrubbed through, that's cool too. If you guys wouldn't mind, if you enjoyed the video, like, share, and definitely subscribe. That would be awesome. And right at the very end here, we're going to spend about 10 seconds, 20 seconds, and you guys can just see the actual line art. And again, if you'd like to color it, follow the link at the bottom to my DeviantArt account, and you can download I believe it's like a 300 to 600 DPI image. So thank you so much, you guys. Take care. Keep reading comics. Keep making comics. We'll talk to you soon.